إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وخليله صلى الله عليه وسلم ثم أما بعد. Inshallah ta'ala, we're actually going to continue our study on the Dajjal. This is part 2 of our academic study on the Dajjal. Very quickly, we went over last time one of the first 3 bullet points, which were, I have my pointer here, which were, what does Dajjal mean? Can anyone remind me very quickly, what does Dajjal mean?
To mix, mixture.
All right, to mix. And basically, he got the name Dajjal because it's mixing what? The truth and the falsehood. All right, Dajjal to mix something, truth and falsehood. And without looking at your notes, can at least everyone in the room, at least name, or some of you can't, no problem, but at least name one description of the Dajjal.
Short man.
He's short. Has a wide neck. Play it.
He has kafir written on his forehead.
He has kafir written on his forehead. Now, he's one eye. All right, he has a problem with one of his eyes. Play it, Sister Severa. He has curly hair. Play it. And there's many other different descriptions. Alhamdulillah. Now also, we said that there was a difference of opinion when it came to, is the Dajjal alive during the time of the Prophet sallallahu? Was he alive during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And who was he? And we know the story of Safi, the story of Safi ibn Sayyad, the young boy with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is a very, very interesting story. Today what we're going to do, we're going to go over 3 more bullet points, which is the arrival of the Dajjal. Where is he going to come out of? Who is going to follow him? Also, the trials and tribulations that the Dajjal will bring. And then we will wrap it up with the response of those who deny the Dajjal. So again, there's 3 parts to the Dajjal series, and this is part 2. And then next week, we will spend a little bit of the class on how do you protect yourself from the Dajjal. All right? So again, today we're going to go over the arrival of the Dajjal, the trials and tribulations of the Dajjal, and also the response of those who deny the Dajjal. If you're taking notes, remember we said in the beginning that there are 10 major signs, right, that must occur before the day of resurrection. Who can name just 2 other than the Dajjal? Huh?
The big beast.
The beast, a devil.
The trust.
That's a minor sign. Trust?
Trust. Yeah.
That's a minor sign.
Okay.
A major sign. The sun will rise from the west. When the Prophet ﷺ actually mentioned these particular 10, all right, there's not a hadith, there's no correct order. When he mentioned it, he was just mentioning it. He didn't mention as if this is going to be the correct order. However, you will find some narrations that basically say the first sign of the major signs of the day of resurrection is the Dajjal. And you will find some of narrations that say the first sign is the rising of the sun from the west. So the question is, how do you bring harmony between the 2? I'm asking you a question. I want you to think about it. Okay, before I even get the answer. The question is, you have some narration that say the first major sign is the Dajjal, and then you have another narration that says the first major sign will be the sun rising from the west. Anybody want to give it a shot? Or you just want the answer?
What was the question again?
Huh?
You were saying how can you bring harmony between?
Yes, how do you bring harmony between the 2? Anyone try it?
Or are you saying like, is it like, or are you saying like the Dajjal could have been like during the Prophet's time?
Okay. All right.
The sun, I mean, the Dajjal could already be present, but like he's saying, but like the sun will rise to the actual trials that we face will come after the sun rises from the west.
Well, yeah. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he has an interesting, because this is an academic study, the reason why I'm only mentioning it, it's pretty interesting. Ibn Hajar, the one who is a famous explanation of Sahih Bukhari, he says the first major sign is the Dajjal, basically that he will change the norm on the earth. Here amongst the earth, he will be the first major sign amongst that, where all the norms would change, all the norms of society, everything would change. And as for the first sign in the heavens, as far as the atmosphere is concerned, then this will be the sun rising from the west. So you have that which affects the earth itself. All right, it'll come into the Dajjal and the corruption, and then obviously the sun rising from the west. Now,
I got a question. Does this relate to, I had read one time, right, when they was like, not necessarily like, you know, when the Dajjal comes, he said that he's the law, right? The people say, prove it. And was he the one, like, he made the sun change direction, then?
no.
Okay.
He won't be able to do that.
Okay.
He won't be able to do that. Alhamdulillah. But what we're going to do, we actually go over. So if you're taking notes, what I want you to do is the first thing we're going to talk about is the arrival of the Dajjal. Where will he come out of? Khuruj al-Dajjal. Alright, maybe I should turn this up if you can see the board just a little bit. Alright. So also here, what happens here, we're going to talk about the first thing is the arrival of the Dajjal. And the Dajjal will come out at a time where the Mahdi is, once they finish fighting a war, what will happen, it will become spread amongst the people. Dajjal qad kharaj. The Dajjal has come out. But this will just be a rumor. Okay, this will just be a rumor. It won't be true at that particular time. And when they actually go to basically confront the Dajjal, they will find out that this was a lie. And then at that point, all right, once the rumor has basically proven to be untrue, the Dajjal will really come out at that time. All right, it's mentioned that this is when he will actually come out. However, what happens here, he will come out from the east, all right, from a place that's known as Khurasan. Again, so I want everybody to pay to me, Khurasan.
Khorasan.
All right. So basically, what happens here, the Dajjal is going to come out.
What continent is that?
I believe it's. Some people say it's like modern day. I think Iran, somewhere over there. All right. Well, the Dajjal will actually come out from this particular area. Now, what happens when he comes out, though? Okay, when he finally comes out, فَلَا يَتْرُكْ. All right, he will not. فَلَا يَتْرُكْ بَلَدٍ إِلَّا دَخَلَ. What happens is he will enter every city, every country, every place on the face of this earth, except for Mecca and Medina. All right. So therefore, he will enter every city, every country, every city, every neighborhood. Come into a neighborhood near you. How about that? All right. So the Dajjal will basically come to every place, except for, there's a Mustafna, except for Mecca and Medina here. Now here's a caveat. Here's something interesting. Here's something interesting a lot of people do not know about the Dajjal. Even though he will come out and he cannot enter Mecca and Medina, it's actually mentioned in the narration of Sahih Muslim. I want you to think about this too. It's actually mentioned in the narration of Sahih Muslim that he will be on the outskirts of Medina. And one of the reasons why he cannot enter Mecca or Medina is because there are angels guarding each entrance. So when he sees these angels, he can't what?
Can't go.
Obviously can't do nothing with angels.
Yeah.
Okay? But now, what happens here, when he's on the outskirts of Medina and he cannot enter, is mentioned in a hadith in Sahih Muslim that whether he will cause it, Allahu A'lam, or whether Allah will allow, what will happen is an earthquake will happen inside of these places.
Inside of Mecca, Medina?
Yes. Which at that point, all of the hypocrites will come out. And they will follow the Dajjal. Now I want you to think about this too. A lot of people, we just read this, but I want you to try your best to try to actually put yourself, I don't want to say in these people's shoes, but I just want you to just see it from a distance. And I think if he can't go into these places to convince these people, if something starts to happen, the ground starts to rumble, an earthquake, and the Dajjal, let's say for an example, he says, listen, come out, I will keep you what? Safe. So therefore, obviously, the true believers know, nah. I'm good, I'm right, I'm staying there. All right, but as for those who are hypocrites and those who truly disbelieve, they will what?
Come out.
They will come out of Mecca and Medina, even though it was better for them to stay where? Inside of Mecca and Medina. So this is what happened. Even though he cannot enter these particular places, in a sense, there will still be an effect. Okay? Now also when he comes out too, does anybody know how long he will actually, his reign will be for?
40 years?
Not 40 years, but 40
Days?
days. But this is it's pretty interesting here. Alright? So when he comes out, he's gonna rule for 40 days. What are you doing? I'm writing you.
That's a big one.
But if you're taking notes, I want you to write your notes just like this. Day number 1, Kisena. The first day will feel like a year. The first day that the Dajjal comes out will feel like a year. Now we'll go into the different explanations of what do the scholars say, how's that possible, how would it feel like a year, so on and so forth. We'll go into that, inshallah. But the first day, how much fitna and terror he will bring, it will seem like a year. The second day, Kasha, it will feel like a month. The third day, the hadith is mentioned Jum'ah, but the meaning, the murad bihi usbur. So basically, it will be, the third day will feel like a week.
What is it called again?
The third day, Jum'ah. But the understanding, I'm putting the calf in front of it because the calf means like. So like a year, like a month, like a Jum'ah. But the understanding of Jum'ah in this narration is what? A week.
A week.
Okay? And then the rest, from the fourth day on, for the rest of the remaining, how many days?
40.
Well, no, remember it's 40 days altogether.
36.
Well, 37.
37.
37 days left, right? All right, so it's 37 days left. So the remainder of the 37 days, it will feel like how our days feel. So again, especially if you ask them, the first day will feel like a what?
A year.
A year. The second day will feel like a what?
A month.
A month. The third day will feel like a what?
A week.
And the fourth day, the remaining 37 days, it will feel like our regular days. But see, here's something interesting, right? The companions, when they heard this narration from the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what do you think they said? That much fitna. First of all, the Prophet said there will be no fitna greater than the fitna of the Dajjal. Since the creation of Adam, there's no fitna greater than the fitna of the Dajjal. I mean, he will cause this much terror, and we actually will go over some of his trials and tribulations. But the companion, and for subhanAllah, a year, a month, a week.
You asked me what I think the companions said?
What do you think they said?
How are we going to save ourselves from this guy?
Close. What do you think they said?
I would have feel like that long.
Close. What do you think they said? Anybody want to give a shot? Don't be Googling. Don't Google it. Huh? Well, they asked the Prophet, they said, Ya Rasulullah, how are we going to pray? To go to show this, how close they were to the Salah. Forget about the fitna he's going to bring. I don't even care about that. I'm not worried about this, that, and third. If it's going to be like a year, how are we going to pray? To show how close they were to their worship. Their ibadah. That's how much it meant to them. Alright? So, the reason why, subhanAllah, that's important is because it kind of shows us where we need to go, where we need to be at our deen. Alright? But the answer to that, the Prophet ﷺ said, basically, you will gauge it, when that first day comes, and it feels like a year, you would try to calculate as much as possible, alright? How, this time will be, actually, this will be Dhuhr. If this was the case, this will be Asr, this will be Maghrib, and this will be Isha, and you'll pray like that. And this will be Fajr, and so on and so forth. You would try your best to gauge it like that. Now, how is he going to make it last that long? All right, so on and so forth. We'll go over that later on. But for right now, we'll leave it as it is. Okay? For the sake of time, yes.
But you said you have to gauge it because nothing will be normal as far as the time.
Nothing will be known as far as the time.
Okay.
All right? So at that point, so you have to gauge it. But when I first learned this, I said, subhanAllah. At first, it took my teacher to point that out to me. I just let it slide by. But to show how keen they were, even for an example, and I'll digress just a little bit, even if you think about when Ramadan came, and they were asked, how long did it take for the Prophet ﷺ between his suhoor and the adhan? And they said, oh, about 50 ayats. No one asked, well, how long is 50 ayats? They all understood, okay, 50 ayats. To show what? How close they were to the Quran. Well, they used the Quran as a measure of time, subhanAllah. Alright, to show how close they were to their worship. So therefore, it just goes to show how close that these companions were to their ibadah. But not to go too far to the side. What happens here when he comes out now, and he will remain for how long? 40 what? Days. The first day feeling like a what?
A year.
The second day?
Month.
The third one?
Week.
And the remaining 37?
Regular days.
Normal days. It's valid. Alright? Who will follow the Dajjal? Who will follow the Dajjal? Now this is going to get pretty touchy, so nobody get mad at me. Okay? Nobody get mad at me. Nobody get mad. It's going to get really touchy a little bit. Alright, so what's going to happen here? When the Dajjal comes out, first of all, yes, he will have different, I don't even want to call it miracles, because that would be kind of disrespectful. He will have different tricks that he would do. Let me just say that. A lot of different tricks that he will do, that Allah will allow him to do, that will obviously confuse the people, but also a psychological game he will play with the people as well. All right, I'm actually going to go over that. But who are some of the people to follow the Dajjal? I'm going to mention 3 groups of people. So for your notes, if you want, I want you to write 1, 2, and then 3. There will be 3 groups of people that will actually follow the Dajjal. Alright? The first group being a kafar amumah. Basically, just disbelievers, generally speaking. Alright? Those who do not believe in the Dajjal, and so on and so forth. Without going into too much detail, but yeah, the kafar amumah, non-believers in general, will follow the Dajjal. Disbelievers, yes. This is from the first group. From the second group, it's mentioned in the hadith, specifically, al-Yahud, that he will have 70,000 Jews to follow him. 70,000 Jews will also be amongst his army. Yes? 70,000 Jews. Alright. The third group, okay, will be al-Muslimun, the Muslims. Now this is where it gets kind of touchy. Scholars were saying the majority of the Muslims here, okay, will be, some of them will be men, but the majority of them,
there's no count on the Muslims, though, right?
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
We're going to talk about it. So, unfortunately, he says, unfortunately, he's mentioned, scholars say, mentioned the majority of them will be Arab, the Bedouins, and women, okay, and some from the youth. All right, so you have basically women from the youth, and obviously men as well. But what happens here, this is interesting. I want you to put a star next to this. Because a lot of people, they say, well, you know, we all know about the Dajjal. If I see him, I'm just going to stay away from him. I'll go back to my apartment, or whatever the case may be. All right? I'll go back and I don't have to worry about it. There's a narration where one of the student of the companions, and obviously he had to get it from a companion who got it from the Prophet ﷺ. But Ibn Hajar, he actually mentions, and I thought this was pretty profound. He says, now, again, how many Muslims do we have on the face of the earth today? Just give me a ballpark.
5 billion?
5 million?
A billion.
Okay. I think it's a little bit too much. 5 billion? 3 billion? 1.5? Let's say 2. Let's say, I think the last time I did it was like 1 point something billion. Alright? Nice it was 5 billion, right? Alright. But let's say 2 billion. What happens here, out of all of these people, there's a narration from Abu Na'im, who was a student of the companions. And when he said that, he said, La yanju ahad. All right, which I think is pretty deep. He says that no one will not injure ahad min fitnat ad-Dajjal, except for no one will be safe from the fitna of the Dajjal from the Muslims, except that it will be only 12,000 men that won't follow him and 7,000 women. Now you do the math. Out of all these, because happened previously with the Mahdi and so on and so forth, when now the number of the Muslimin have became what?
Small.
Very small.
Decrease.
Either way you look at it, that's still very sad.
17,000.
All right? Where you only have 12,000 men, and then, again, this comes from one of the students of the companions. He said there will be 12,000 men and only 7,000 women. So much so. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, that's very sexist, and this, that, and third, and so on and so forth. All right, let's just call it what it is. But this is what some people will say. But I want you to think about this too. Right? Now, here, we live in a time where Islam or Islamophobia, what have you, they play this mind game, with especially when Islam is very oppressive towards women, do this, and so on and so forth. We can liberate you. Feminist movements, even feminist movements amongst Muslims, and so on and so forth. Why am I even bringing this up? Because you got to understand here, when the Dajjal comes, he's going to offer a lot of things. Stuff from your inner desires, and so on and so forth. I'll liberate you. I'll do this, and so on and so forth. We're actually going to go over some of these things. It's mentioned in a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, there will come a time, there will come a time when the Dajjal has caused so much fitna, all right, especially with enticing the women, all right, that so much so that a man will basically have to go home and just basically hold his family, hold his wife, hold his mother. Please don't follow the Dajjal. All right? How much stuff that he will actually do. Okay? Now what happens here, what we will go over this a little bit more. This is just some of the things that has been mentioned about the Dajjal. What we're going to do here, we're going to talk about the trials and tribulation that he actually brings.
Can I ask a question about that, or you can go more in detail?
Yeah.
Okay. So you said that the majority of the Muslims who will follow him
I'm going to put TT just for trials and tribulation. Then.
will be men, right?
Say the majority of what?
You said the majority, who of the Muslims, you said the majority of them will be men? Did you say that, or did you say it would be better?
The majority of the men that's left or that will follow him?
They will follow him.
It's basically broken up between men, women, and children.
So it's not majority, like you didn't say that. I just want to make sure I was taking.
Some scholars say the majority would be women, but there's no proof for that.
Okay.
It's just something that speculation that they say.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now here what happens also. TT stands for what?
Trials and tribulations.
All right. Trials and tribulations. We're only going to mention, for the sake of time, 5 things that I found that I think was, I don't want to say amazing, but something that just really hit me about some of the tricks that the Dajjal would bring. Number 1, all right, one of the things that the Dajjal would be able to do, anyone ever lost a relative, someone that they truly love, by show of hands? Someone that you're close with, all right, a family member, all right, cool. And what happens, how did that make you feel?
Grief.
Grief?
Love.
For having the opportunity to hug this person, this, that, and the third, whatever it was.
Won't see him again.
The Dajjal will play so many different games with the people. What happened here, he will come to an individual and he would basically know that this person is grieving about the loss of their parents. And the Dajjal would say, if I bring them back, then at that point, the Dajjal will order 2 from the jinn, from the shayateen. They will take the form of this person's loved ones, his father and his mother. And they will literally, it will look as if they're coming out of the ground. SubhanAllah.
He's going to be doing.
All right, because he will have control over the shayateen.
Okay.
Of the jinns. So what happens, check this out now. When they come out of the ground, they will say, Ya ibni, oh my son, it's ba'u, فَإِنَّهُ رَبَّ. Follow him because he is your Lord. SubhanAllah. First of all, that gotta be creepy, right?
Yeah.
All right, you see something, all right, you at your family's grave, or whatever the case may be, you see something come out of the grave, and now you know all the stuff you done read before about this, that, and the third, and then you seeing this. It's one thing to know it, and it's nothing to see it. And you see this figure come out of the grave, and it's your long-lost mother that you didn't see in 20, 30, 40 years. And she says, follow him, son. He's your Lord. And the man will what? He will follow. So one of the things that he will do is he will bring life back to... Now, I want to say bring life. A lot of people say bring life back to the dead. No one can do that except for Allah. But what happens, it will be as if, the illusion, if we understand that.
Illusion of life.
The illusion of bringing life back to the dead. Because no one, la yuhyi al-mawta illa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no one that brings life to the dead except for Allah. So therefore, he will not be able to do that. And that's a wrong translation that a lot of people do. He will not be able to do that. But one of the things he will be able to do, he will give the what? Illusion.
Yeah.
Now some people say, yeah, I already know that. Now I'll be honest with you, I'm from New York, right? I done seen a lot of things in my life. Okay? Now the reason why I would bring that up, there's some stuff growing up as a kid. Anybody been to New York? Anybody been to? Alright. Let's show me. Alright, cool. You go to a pop, or even some of the, you see people do card tricks on the street and all this other stuff. And some people, or even now, what's the TV show? America Got Talent, British people got talent, all this other stuff. Every country got talent. India has talent. Everybody has talent, which is cool.
Yeah.
But they always have like these magicians on these shows.
Right.
And they start doing all these particular tricks, and everybody's like,
Man.
wow. And these are just card tricks, which is just at the end, it's an illusion. All these, David Blaine, Chris Angel, all these magicians, they can't compare nothing to the Dajjal. And you have people, Muslims, just amazed at like a card trick, making it, and I'm putting it down my sleeve. So now, if you have the Dajjal and he's standing over the ground and he causes something to come out of the ground, it's not easy like that, just because you know. So therefore, we got to understand that this man is a dangerous man. All right, he's very, very dangerous. And this is why the Prophet said to them, he encouraged the people, if you hear that the Dajjal is in you, leave. Don't try to face him. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm calling Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So therefore, the first one that, not that he brings life back to the dead, he does what? He brings the illusion as if what? He's bringing back life to the dead. The Dajjal also has, with him, he will have 2 rivers.
2 what?
Rivers.
Oh, rivers? Okay.
The river, the first river, will like fire. It will be like fire. The second river will be cold. It will be like water. Peaceful, real clean, good water. And what happens here, this hadith is in Sahih Bukhari. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that he has 2 rivers with him. Whoever lives from amongst you, and you meet the Dajjal, and he shows you these 2 rivers, approach the river of fire. Because his fire is actually cold. And his cold water is actually fire. But notice here the Prophet ﷺ, he also mentions something. A lot of people, we read this, but we don't contemplate on it. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, approach the one with fire and do this. He said, go to it, close your eyes. Close your eyes and drink from the water. Because it will be burnt, it will be cold. And as for those who drink from the other one, it will actually be hot and it will burn. The reason why some of the scholars mention the benefit of actually a person closing their eyes is what? To not give into the illusion. You have some people, again, they start seeing stuff, they seeing is believing. Okay? But to close your eyes and what? And drink from his fire. There's some narrations mention he will have Jannah and he will have Nar. Where his Jannah is actually Nar, hellfire, and his hellfire is actually Jannah. Alright, so he'll be able to do a lot of different things. This is not no tricks, no Hollywood. This man is causing this stuff to happen. Okay? So this is another thing. Another thing that I found to be interesting is that, number 3, there will be a man that actually will approach the Dajjal. Here's a story in Sahih Muslim, on authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. He will actually go to the Dajjal, and he will say, excuse me, here's the story. So what happens here, when he's approaching to go to the Dajjal has his soldiers. It's mentioned in the hadith in Sahih Muslim. And they will ask the young man, where are you going? Where do you want to go? He says, I want to go face this man who claims to be Allah. Then they will ask him, do you have doubt about your Lord? Meaning, their Lord, who they're talking about? The Dajjal. The man will say, I believe in Allah, and this man is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At this point, they will want to kill him. But one of the soldiers, and again, this hadith is in Sahih Muslim, one of the soldiers, they would say, we cannot kill him except the Dajjal gave us orders. We can't kill anyone except with his permission. So they would take him to the Dajjal. When they take him to the Dajjal, what happens here at this point is the Dajjal will say, do you not believe I am your Lord? And the boy would say, no. The man would say, no, you're not my Lord. فَقَتِلُوهُ. The Dajjal will cut the boy in half. Okay? What happens when he cuts him in half is mentioned that the Dajjal will walk in between him, okay? And then put his body back together. And ask the boy, do you believe I'm your Lord? The boy would say, I am more sure now that you're the Dajjal than before. I'm even more sure now.
More evidence.
So what happens, this will cause the Dajjal to become very angry, and it's mentioned in the hadith that the Dajjal will grab a knife and stick it to the boy's neck, but Allah will make the boy's neck strong, but the Dajjal won't be able to kill him. At this point, it basically will piss the Dajjal off. Okay? So he will have a fire, he will grab the boy and throw him in the fire. Alright, to kill him. Adequately, how it happens here, these are some of the things that the Dajjal will be able to do. He has a large army, alright? And also now, number 4, here, number 4, he will have a large amount of a jabal min al-khubz, a mountain of bread. Now the reason, and food, he will feed the people, but he will only feed people that believe in him. Now somebody may say, well, why does that matter? I got food at home. This food is in abundance. It doesn't matter. I'm going to mention a narration. Some of the scholars say that this narration is weak, but it does give light to why did the Dajjal bring food to the people. It's mentioned in the narration that 3 years prior to the Dajjal coming, rain will be very scarce. The first year, 3 years prior to the Dajjal coming. Again, like I said, this hadith is actually weak, but it does bring light to other authentic narrations as to why does he bring food. So the first thing, the first year, the 3 years prior to the Dajjal coming, Allah will cause the rain to hold 1/3 of its water all across the world. The second year, 2/3 of the rain will stop. And then the third year, no rain will come at all across the world. Which will cause all of the vegetation and everything to what?
Perish.
To perish, to die. So at this point, you have a huge case of famine across the world. People are starving to death, literally. So now what happens here, when the Dajjal comes with this mountain of khubz, this mountain of bread and mountain of food and so on and so forth, and it's mentioned in another narration, this is why when he goes to the people and he commands it to rain, it will rain. And then when the water hits the ground, he will command vegetation to grow immediately and it will grow. When the people see this, they say, what? I've been starving all these years. You know what I mean? All I want you to say is, I'm your Lord. That's it. So this is why you got to think about it. This is why the Prophet mentioned there is no fitna greater on this ummah than the fitna of Dajjal. Because again, when you have people, when you have people who are starving, people are willing to do anything just to get something to eat. All right. So now here on top of that, now you're telling me I can't take from this man. All right. So now also that's number 4. Number 5 that we're going to mention too. This is just some of the trials and tribulations that he's going to do. Number 5, what happens? Mentioned in one narration that he will go, and I'll tie 2 narrations into one. That he will pass by a wasteland, and then people will see him. He will pass by a wasteland, and he will command all of the wasteland to bring forth its vegetation and its treasures, and everything will come out. And it's mentioned that the produce and the vegetation will follow him like a swarm of bees. All right. There's one narration too, and I'll tie this in with the other one, where some of the scholars mention that it's all of a not necessarily an illusion, but following the Dajjal is a tremendous deceit. How? What happens here, you have one narration, and again this is in Sahih Muslim. What happens here is that the Dajjal will come across a group of people in the area. And though he would get some people to follow him, and he will cause it to rain, and they will have vegetation, and their cattle will be full, and so on and so forth. And the people will be pleased. And he will go to some of the believers and get them to follow, and they won't follow him. But he would just leave these people alone. And it's mentioned during the next day, when those who followed him, when they wake up, everything that the Dajjal gave them is gone. All right? So therefore, there's no benefit what? To begin with. But they have lost already with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is also why it brings light to when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about even the shaitan in the Quran, when the shaitan will mention on the day of resurrection that I promise you, but I promise you lies, deception. And Allah promised you something of truth, but you didn't follow it. Don't blame me, but blame yourself. I had nothing to do with it. All I did was whisper to you, and you answered me. All right, I didn't hold a gun to your head. I ain't do none of that. All right. So what happens here is very unfortunate. But anyway, those are the 5 things that we're going to mention, and we're going to take a couple more minutes for the sake of time. If there's any questions, if anybody's following Facebook, then please let me know if there's any questions on Facebook, inshallah. Now, what happens here? How do we respond to those who say, "I don't believe in the Dajjal"? For those who say, "I don't believe," first of all, why do they say this? Why do people say they don't believe in the Dajjal? Who can give me a guess? Who can tell me? Why do some people say, "I don't believe in the Dajjal"? Anybody know? Well,
It could be either because they're strong followers of Allah or they're atheists. I don't know.
Okay. All right. One of the reasons why they say, well, wait a minute. If this is the case, you said that the Prophet ﷺ said that the greatest fitna on this ummah is who? The Dajjal. If that is the case, why didn't Allah mention the Dajjal in the Quran? When other fitna are mentioned, the fitna of money, the fitna of family, the fitna of spouses, these things can't compare to the Dajjal. But they're mentioned in the Quran. So Allah will mention this, but He's not going to mention that. It's an argument. It's a logical argument that the people make. All right? That's why they say, and again, we're going to refute that claim. Okay? But what happens here, they say, well, if that's the case, everybody understand their argument? All right? You're going to talk about something less, but you're not going to talk about why. So all together, you know what? We don't believe in that. They just write it off altogether. Now, how do we actually respond to that? There's a beautiful response from the scholar Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who wrote a beautiful explanation of Sahih Bukhari. He says, first and foremost, now I want everybody to go to chapter 6 in the Quran. All right, chapter 6, verse 158. So we're going to give 3 responses to this particular claim. responses to the claim of why isn't the Dajjal mentioned in the Quran. That's what some people don't believe. Whoever has 6158, please read it, inshallah.
You want to read it out? You want me to read it out?
Yes.
Do they then wait for anything except that the angels should come to them, or your Lord should come, or that there come some of the signs of your Lord? The day that some of the signs of your Lord will come, no soul will benefit from its faith as long as it had not believed before.
Stop. Here, that particular part right there. Yom yati ba'da ayat rabbik. That there was on that day some signs would occur that would not benefit the soul if you did not believe before. What happens here is that the scholars of Islam, they mention that the Dajjal is included in this part. Alright? Some signs, as she just read, some signs that will occur, some signs that will occur, alright, that was mentioned. Just like not all 10 signs were mentioned. Or not all 10 signs were mentioned. For example, the 3 major earthquakes. Alright? Is that mentioned in the Sunnah or the Quran? Alright? Also, the sun rising from the west. Is that mentioned in the Sunnah or the Quran? So therefore, having said that, again, you have some of the 10 that were mentioned in the Sunnah without mentioning in the Quran. Some of the scholars also mention, they say that also it was sufficient when Allah talked about Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And we're going to talk about those. Who are they and so on and so forth. But Allah mentions Ya'juj and Ma'juj in the Quran. And obviously they come after what? Isa alayhi salam. And Isa is connected to the Dajjal. So having said that, there's no need to mention, alright, the Dajjal in the Quran. And again, this is a response to those who say that we don't believe in the Dajjal because he's not mentioned in the Quran. So this is everybody understands number 1? 6158, alright, is that what? The verse says that on that day, Yom yati ba'da ayat rabbik. Alright? La yanfa'u nafsan imanuha. Basically what happens here, there are some signs that will occur that will not benefit the soul if they did not believe before. Alright? And from that, the scholars mentioned the Dajjal is included in that. Alright? Just like certain things were mentioned in some of the Bible. But obviously also Ya'juj and Ma'juj is mentioned in the Quran and Surah Al-Kahf and another surah as well. So therefore it's sufficient to mention them. The second argument or second response, and we're going to give 3 responses and then we're finished. The second response that you can have is that basically Allah didn't mention him to show him that he's insignificant. Don't worry about it. Alright, don't worry about it. He's insignificant. Yes, he will cause terror and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, Allah will be victorious in the end. There's no need to worry about it. Some of you will meet him, some of you won't meet him. Worry about that which is that everybody has to go through, their intention, not showing off, so on and so forth. These are other things that everybody will what? Eventually face, even if you don't meet the Dajjal. Only a small group of people, only a small group of people, only a people, alright, on a large scale of things, only a few people will meet the Dajjal. Alright, so therefore, as he mentioned, basically he's insignificant. This is what Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani mentions. He says the third thing is that Dalil in Islam, proof in Islam is 2 things. Or rather 3 things. We have Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma', consensus of the scholars. And he said it's sufficient that Allah mentioned him in the Sunnah. It was mentioned in the Sunnah. For an example, in the Quran, Allah says pray. But does he mention how to pray in the Quran? No. It's mentioned where? In the Sunnah. So, for example, why all of a sudden you accept the Sunnah, but when it comes to the Dajjal, you don't want to accept the Sunnah now? Alright? So having said that, this is why the scholar mentioned, it's sufficient that he mentioned in the Sunnah, and it's not something to cause the people to get up and be rowdy about. Alright? Yeah, Allah has mentioned, you know that he's coming, so on and so forth. Just focus on saving yourself and your family. So these are the 3 responses, again, to those who, and again, you'll be asked this on a test. Alright, And I just don't want you to write 6158. I'm going to mark it wrong. All right? You got to explain it. You got to explain it. All right? And don't say, well, Abdul Wahaab said, okay, because I'm going to mark it wrong. I want you to truly understand. Does everybody understand? All right. So again, if you're asked on a test, there are some people who say we don't believe in the Dajjal because he's not mentioned in the Quran. You have 1 to 3 detailed responses you can get. Again, as a quick synopsis real quick, 6158 is basically mentioned that there was some, as Allah mentions, there are some signs that will occur that will not benefit the soul they didn't believe in before. And you will go to, don't just quote the verse, explain it. And say, well, the Dajjal is included in that. And it's also in other chapters of the Quran, Ya'juj and Ma'juj was mentioned, and they are connected to the Dajjal right after the Dajjal. And also, not only saying that, there are other 10 signs, from amongst the 10 signs, there are other things that were not mentioned in the Quran neither. So therefore, having said that, this is sufficient. You understand that? Number 2, again, some of the scholars mentioned he's insignificant. Don't worry about it. And then number 3, also, I would say the strongest arguments are number 1 and number 3. Number 2 sounds nice, but I really don't want to say that's a strong argument, with all due respect. Because at the end of the day, the Prophet did say that this man will be the greatest fitna on my ummah at the end of the day. So to say that he's insignificant, I like it, but first, I would say the first one and the last one, the strongest arguments, that he was mentioned in the Sunnah, and there's no need to be repetitive over it. All right? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Are there any questions about anything we covered today? The arrival of the Dajjal, any trials and tribulations that he will bring, and the response of those who did not know Dajjal. Just so you know, next week we will start how to protect yourself from how do you protect yourself from the Dajjal, and then we're going to start the return of Isa alayhi salam, and then going into my favorite part. I love talking about Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Okay, all right. So again, next week we're going to start off with how do you protect yourself from the Dajjal. That'll be part 3, and that'll be connected to the return of the Messiah, Jesus alayhi salam. All right, is there any questions? No.
What were some of the norms that would be changed other than the sun when he appears?
As far as the universe is concerned,
Yeah.
you have the dukhan, the smoke. All right, as Allah mentions in the Quran, that there'll be a huge smoke that will, and we'll go over that. I don't want to go into much detail, but that's another major thing that will, as far as the universe is concerned. All right, you have the tulu al-shams maghrib, the sun rising from the west. That's the only thing that comes to mind right now. The only thing that comes to mind as far as the atmosphere is concerned. Oh yes, thank you. And the fire coming from Yemen. That will start a major fire that will start from Yemen that will basically force all of mankind, it's from the 10, to the gathering place of time of resurrection. All right, we're going to talk about that too in detail once we get there. All right, in detail once we get there. Any other questions? No? All right, any questions from Facebook? Let me check. Nope. Okay. If that's the case, then inshallah ta'ala, we're finished, inshallah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bye.